Hello, everybody. I want to continue with our semi-comprehensive introduction to Python. So this is about functions, and we've mentioned that before. In this case, you say def in order to refer to a function. You say its name, and then you can give it parameters such as a comma b. And this one is going to get the total from 0 to 1, so from total equals 0 for k in range a to b plus 1. So if you said like from 3 to 15, it'll go from 3 to 15, and total plus equals k, and then return, and then it'll print the total, and you say function 1, and you just call it, and that's how you get it going by simply calling it. In this example, we have a bit more. We have import math as m, and we're going to get the average. So def average values total equals 0 for k, and values total plus equals k, and return the total divided by len of values. So whatever the length is, in values. Now, what is values? Values is a list, and I'm going to put in my list into here. Now, the second thing I have is a standard deviation, which takes in values as well. Notice the colon, and then everything is indented just as before. So we say average equals average values. First, you get the average. Then for k equals numbers, num plus equals k minus average, mu minus, or each value, p of x or whatever, um, or I guess we should say x minus the average, mu squared, and then we add them all together. We then take num, once they're added all together, divided by len minus 1, because this is the sample standard deviation. And then we do m dot square root, and that's why I'm using the math to get an up num, and it's going to return it. So notice that these are return values, and secondly, that one of these is being called by the other, and that's an important point, which is that you can call functions one to another, and you can assign the results. So we pass in a list, and there's nothing special you have to say about a list, like in C++ or Java or something like that. You do have to say, "Ooh, I'm passing in a list," but over here, I simply pass in info, and it's perfectly fine, and then it's going to print out whatever that return statement is. So this is an important example because there's a lot of differences between this and some of the other standard imperative languages. If I say important statistics as st, I can say st.dev of info, and it'll automatically give it because there are libraries that do these things anyway. In this case, I'm going to count powers of 2. As you can see, it's going down and counting powers of 2. So I'm going to take in val, I'm going to return val times 2. You're going to just square it. So for k in range 20, print a, and then multiply it by. But notice that when I multiply by 2 and I call the function, I'm reassigning it to a. So I get a return value, I'm reassigning it, and then it's going to keep going by calling multiply by 2 and getting those powers. In this example over here, we will say convert kilometers to miles, and it takes kilometers in and multiplies by 0.6214. And so when we say float, how many kilometers have you gone? You give me a number, and then I say you have gone. Notice that even inside here, I can call the function k2m and then get the number of miles get the number of miles from the kilometers that you gave me. In this example, we take in tax. Notice that it's all uppercase. It doesn't need to be uppercase. It's just that the standard is that if you have something constant, which you don't want people to change, then you're going to make it uppercase. So in this example, since we want to make it uppercase, and since we want to make it viewed as a constant so that nobody changes it, we just leave it as uppercase. So we say price times 1 plus tax. And notice that we can throw an item, and we can separately so in this function, just as before, inside this printf, the function with the return value to be expressed over there. Over here, of the car expenses such as the loan, insurance, gas, oil, tires, and maintenance, then we get the total and print it out. As before, all you need to do is say car expenses, and it will call the function, and it will ask you everything in that. In this example over here, we have tax and assessment, where you're going to give the property value, and we're going to get the assessment. It's going to print it out. So if your property value is this much, and it's going to take it in, it's going to do the math and print it out for you. And again, notice that we have, it can output the values and in that way. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these. The max of something, max of 2a comma b, if a is greater than b, return a, else return b. Notice that there's 2 return statements, and doesn't mean it's returning 2 things, it just means it's going to be one or the other. And so you put in value 1, value 2, and then as before, max of values 1 and 2. If you want to do a cube, you can use some type of math, or you can simply do it out whenever you like. If we want to have a function call, this is times 10, and you say times 10, 3, then it's going to pass in the 3 and return the 30 for you. Okay, so we listed primes before in a range, but if we want to test if two things are coprime, which means that they don't share any value. So for instance, how many numbers, this is called the Euler-Tauschent function, and we want to figure out what numbers are coprime to 12. In other words, what numbers share no divisors. So 1 and 12 don't share divisors besides 1. 5 and 12 don't share divisors besides 1. 7 and 12 don't share divisors besides 1. And 11 and 12 don't share divisors. So what we do is we say list coprimes x, print 1 first of all, then for I in range 2 to something, if coprime test. So we pass an x, which in this case is 12, and I, which is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if it's true, then we print it. So you can see that in the previous function, which is the one we're calling the coprime test, it says num1, num2. For I in range 2, comma num2 plus 1, we're going to go, let's say that you passed in 12 and you passed in 5. So it's going to check if 5 is coprime by saying if they share anything. So it's going to go from 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to say, well, does 12 and 5 share a 2? No. Does it share a 3? No. Does it share a 4? No. Does it share a 5? Well, not up till 5, but 2, 3, 4. And if it shares anything, including 5, right, including 5, then it will, if it doesn't share anything, it's going to return false. And then if it's false, then it will print it because if it's, well, it's going to return false if it shares anything, it's going to return true otherwise. So if it went through all of them, then they are coprime, and then we're going to return true, and then we'll print it. So that's that. Twin primes, or primes next to each other, like 3 and 5, 5 and 7, 11, 13, 17, and 19. How do we do that? We say if is prime and is prime x plus 2. So we already have an is prime function that we've created. So now we're just going to call that. And whenever it's true, we return true or false based on that, and then it prints it out. We have a rock, paper, scissors game that you can play and various other things. Now, this is a function called circle area, returns m.pi, math.pi times radius times 2, rectangle length times width, square side times side, and you can get your general functions in this way to get whatever it is that you're supposed to call. Now, normally we would do that with a object, and that's something that we can talk about later. In terms of lists, there's a lot of different things that you can do with lists. For instance, if you have Albert, Betty, and Charlie times 3, then it actually just does it times 3. If you say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, the list of 0 is going to be the first one. List of -1 is going to be the last one. If you want to say 1 through 4, then it's going to print you can see it prints 10, 20, 30, 40, because this is position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it presents positions 1, 2, and 3, which is 20, 30, 40. If you said colon 4, positions up and 2, not including the 4, that's going to print 10, 20, 30, 40, because it's going to be the 0 through 3 position. If you're going to do 4 colon, it's going to be from there and on. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, so 50, 60 is what it'll do. Everything after position 4. Outputs position -2 and -3. If you say, you can see it's 40 and 50 over there, that 40 and 50, because that's -2, there's -1, -2, -3, so -3, -2 is going to that's going to print those, and if you say -2 that, it's going to print from the end, from 50 till the end, because you have that. It can definitely be confusing, but those are called slicers. If you want to look through a list for index and range len of names, it's going to print each one of those as you go. So it's going to say, why is it len of names? Because it has to be the length of however long that is. We have numbers 1, numbers 2, and then we're going to add them together, right? So in this case, it's storing numbers 2, and that's going to be the thing that we're going to be adding. So you would think that what's going to happen over here when I say numbers 2 plus 1 is maybe it should add the numbers, and it should say like 11, 22, and 33 or something like that. But that's not what happens. What happens is that when you say numbers 2 plus equals numbers 1, that's really just putting the two of them together. It's called something called broadcasting, which we'll talk about a little bit later. In this example, I have a little bit more sophisticated one with probability, which is going to be the numbers and then the probability of each of those numbers. So it takes each of the numbers and it multiplies by the probability, and it's going to do each one individually, because for I in range len of numbers, it's going to do numbers of I times weights of I. So it's going to do each one of those for the I of 1, and then it's going to get that. So it's same thing for the standard deviation, although I don't want to go through the statistics. If you get min, max, the average, the geo-mean, you should, get used to trying these things and attempting that. The geo-mean is going to be total, you multiply them all, then you do to the power, 1 to the power. So if you had like three things, it's going to be to the 1/3 power after you multiply them all. So you can check the math and go and do that. I have a bunch of problems here. I don't want to do all of them. I just want to show you one or two that might be useful. But the thing I want to get to, not like fancy math because that can get distracting, like what duration is and etc., but is just that you can also pull data from online. So if you have a Pandas data frame, that's where you're going to pull it. So I'm pulling it from GitHub user content, Data Science Dojo, whatever. This is some website that has the Titanic data, and then you can get that data and you can see what it is because you can pull it from online. If I do that df.histogram, notice that it's called df for data frame. And then I do df.hist. That actually shows me the histogram for each of the things. So pretty neat. And then df.describe, which is that whole data, it describes to you all the stats for that data. For each of the features, it's going to give you the statistic for that. So same thing with other data, where I might get pregnancy data or something like that that I have on Udemy. And then what we do is we get all those features and we check for something like if is null.sum, if find out how many of them have nulls in it, find out how many unique values there are in them. You can do everything with this df. You can get the statistics for df.describe gets that, and then you can do like the sns.catplot data equals df, and you can get this and you can start to look at the data and say, oh, so there's a lot of outliers over here for insulin. That might be something that we want to check. We can get catplot for pregnant, and x equals pregnant, and then data is going to be df, and kind is going to be count. So we see how many of these in each category, I guess, were pregnant. I guess the month or the count of whatever it was. I don't know the data. I don't remember it. And then we have histograms that we can also get. Again, it's just df.histogram for the different statistics that you have for each of these things. So it's very important to be able to understand this because it takes a line of code or two to get like the whole relationship. This is the correlation diagram, df2.core. It gives you a heat map of the correlation between each of the features. If it's between -0.3 and +0.3, it's not important. If it's anything outside that, which like this one, for instance, pregnancy and score.probability or whatever are related, this insulin and glucose are related, and many of these other ones are too low a relationship, but age and scored probability is also going to be relevant. So you can see that most of this code is really just a line or two, and that's kind of why Python is so powerful for this, because the way that you do data science project then is you take your code and then you slowly build it out. You see what's relevant, and you mix together the code blocks and the text blocks, and you put together a story that you're going to try and explain what is going on with the data.